For years, I treated humiliation like sleet. I brushed it from my coat before I walked in the door. Newsrooms taught me early to tell rumor from pattern, kindness from performance. I married a man who turned reputation into architecture. Graham Whitaker made Bayfield University feel taller when he strode through its courtyards. People didn't just greet him, they straightened. There's a kind of applause that doesn't need hands, only the tilt of a body falling into line. He used to tilt toward me too. Then the angle changed. Our daughter, Maya, is 23 and radiant the way a future is radiant. She stands in a room and everything around her looks lit. When she was little, I edited my patience the way I edited copy. Any barb from Graham, any quiet correction delivered with that pleasant smile, I cut away before she could read it on my face. I wanted her to leave our house believing men could be steady, not sharp, that a raised voice wasn't the only language power spoke. That belief required maintenance. I learned to edit myself out. A journalist who erases is a strange animal, but a mother will override her training for the sake of a child's map of the world. Tonight, the map changed. It began with an envelope. No return address, only my name printed in a careful, almost old-fashioned hand. I found it wedged between our bills and a flyer for piano lessons when I came home from an interview in the South End. The house was empty. Graham had gone back to campus for a donor dinner, and Maya was still at the newsroom. The radiator clanked its metal syllables. I set my bag down, peeled off my gloves, and slit the envelope with a butter knife. Inside, printouts and 2 small index cards. The printouts were emails copied and pasted into a single document, the headers intact. The first was from Graham to the university's communications director. Subject line, narrative housekeeping. Polite, neutral words that smelled like disinfectant. In the body, phrases that made the air near my face feel thin. Optics, personal transitions, and a suggestion that, should a particular columnist inquire about his home life, there be a coherent message about my long-standing challenges with balance and stresses exacerbated by age and industry headwinds. Industry headwinds. I have spent 30 years walking into strangers' grief and strangers' triumph with a notebook and a pen, and now my work was a wind problem. The second email thread was cleaner, colder. It had been forwarded to him by a senior donor. The donor fussed that the next phase required a more photogenic partnership. Graham's reply was measured, appreciative, non-committal. He thanked the donor for candor and agreed to attend to internal matters with sensitivity. The index cards brought the temperature down another degree. On the first, a single sentence in neat block letters. Check the archivist's log for the Whitaker Fellowship. After hours is better. On the second, ask for Ruth Delgado. She keeps copies. I flipped the cards over. No signature. Just the prim authority of someone who has worked too long with filing cabinets to leave confessions in ink. The living room felt suddenly crowded. I put the pages back in the envelope and carried it to the kitchen, where the light was gentler. There's a plate by the door where we drop keys. You can tell the mood of a house by the way metal falls. Tonight, I set my ring of keys down as if they were glass. They made the smallest sound, a note rather than a clatter. The house seemed to hold its breath. When Graham first became dean, Maya would sit on his office rug and make small forts out of brochures while he answered calls. Over the years, the forts turned to homework, then to honest conversations, the kind grown women have with their mothers at 10 o'clock at night in kitchens that smell like tea and lemon. I never told her I was learning a new sport, how to catch a slight before it hit, how to pocket a sting so she wouldn't notice my wince. But the human ear is an instrument, and mine has been trained for too long not to record. A joke slightly too loud at a banquet, a correction delivered in front of a staff, a habit of finishing my sentences with a more impressive version. These are small crimes, but they accrue like snow. You wake, and the car won't start because something quiet has sealed it to the earth. I pulled my phone from my bag and found Maya's text from an hour earlier. Running late, don't wait up. I typed, "I'll leave the porch light on," then erased it. Tomorrow the university would dress itself in gold programs and careful smiles. Graham always looked tallest on nights when the building applauded. She would be fine. It was me I was writing to. Bayfield's archivist's office sits at the far end of the library's lower level. If the note was right, the archivist log would list who accessed which boxes and when. Why would someone nudge me there? And why tonight? At 8:30, the front door opened and closed with Maya's brisk signature. We spoke briefly. When her door clicked, I slipped the cards into a folder and took my keys from the plate, holding them until they warmed. I did not tell her I was going out. Sometimes a life turns not on a speech, but on the decision to say nothing. The snow kept falling, turning the quad into a clean page. At night, Bayfield University looked almost kind. Its old red bricks softened under white. The clock tower blurred like a thought you try to remember but can't. I parked near the loading dock behind the library. The air smelled of iron and damp paper. Somewhere inside, I could almost hear the hum of the building breathing. After hours, universities hum with unsaid things. It's not peace. It's the sound of unspoken histories stacked behind locked doors. I buzzed the side door and held my breath. Somewhere deeper in the stacks, a relay clicked. The archivist must have released the latch. A pause, then the soft click of the latch. The corridor was lit by the kind of fluorescent light that makes everything honest. Ruth Delgado sat behind a desk piled with gray boxes, her cardigan buttoned wrong at the collar. She looked up and didn't seem surprised at all. "I was wondering when you'd show up," she said. We moved into the back room. Shelves, labels, the cold hum of truth. Ruth leaned against the door. "I shouldn't be doing this," she said quietly, "but I also shouldn't keep watching good women vanish." She handed me a flash drive, everything I could copy without alarms. Meeting notes, donor correspondence, the fellowship applications he curated, and one buried report. If it surfaces, certain people will start asking questions he won't enjoy answering. "Why me?" I asked. "Because you'll know how to tell it without losing your soul," she said. "And because I've watched him erase you in small doses." Her words stung. "You think anyone will believe it?" "They don't have to. It just has to exist." I took the drive. She caught my wrist lightly. "You can still walk away." "I already did," I said. Outside, the snowfall thickened into a quiet curtain. Across the courtyard, the windows of his office glowed like a stage left lit after the audience has gone home. In the windshield, I caught my reflection, less tired than unadorned. In the car, the drive sat in my palm, weightless and heavy all at once. I drove to the auditorium, drawn by impulse. The maintenance door was ajar. On stage, I stood behind the microphone and whispered, "Not yet." I told the empty seats, because the story hadn't finished earning its ending. Boston woke up under a perfect disguise. I sat at the Alder House, sipping coffee. The flash drive lay beside the folded envelope. When you spend years reporting on other people's secrets, you start to believe you can live without any of your own. That was my mistake. Today, the committee would gather again. Graham's winter gala. Maya called, shaken. He had told the dinner guests I was resting for my health. "I need you to trust me," I said. "You'll be at the gala?" "Yes." "Then you'll see everything clearly." At the university, lights shimmered, cameras flashed. Graham greeted donors with perfect warmth. When he saw me, he smiled the politician's smile. "You made it," he said. "I wouldn't miss it." He leaned in. "Let's keep everything pleasant today." "Of course," I said. The crimson-dressed event staffer waved. "Dean Whittaker, 5 minutes." He turned away. I moved to the tech console. Cables braided under the table. The auxiliary input blinked like a small green eye waiting to be chosen. When the house lights dipped, I switched the input source. The technician looked up. "Ma'am, that's..." "Updated deck from comms," I said evenly, opening the media panel. It's a self-contained video, timed to advance on cue. He squinted, saw the preview, and nodded. If it's pre-timed, you're good. Graham began. Smooth, confident, lacquered with practiced sincerity. Tonight, he said, we celebrate legacy. My wife, Ellen, is here. Her patience has been the foundation of everything I've built. Applause. He continued. As many know, she's stepping back to focus on her health. On the screen, the campus photo faded, replaced by an email. Subject, narrative housekeeping. A ripple crossed the audience. Line by line, his words appeared. He turned, confusion cracking his tone. Another file appeared, his buried report. Turn it off, he shouted. I stepped forward. You should let them finish reading, I said quietly, but the microphone caught it. Every head turned. He hissed, What are you doing? Correcting the record. Then, slowly, a few people started clapping, tentative, steady like rain finding dry ground. I walked past him toward Maya. Remember what I told you, I whispered. Believe what you see. Outside, snow drifted through the lamplight. I turned on my phone recorder. This is the story of the man who taught me silence and the night I finally spoke. By dawn, the story had already broken. The city trembled with it. Headlines everywhere. Academic power couple implodes. I ignored every call. At first light, I handed the flash drive to the front desk and asked them to lock it in the small safe. Then came the knock. Maya, eyes red, voice unsteady. You planned this. Yes, I said. Not the scandal, just the truth. He's furious, she said. He told the board you'd ruined everything. I didn't ruin it. I stopped pretending it was whole. Why now? Because last night he erased me in public and you saw it. I promised myself you'd never learn to think that was love. She squeezed my hand. You didn't protect me from it. You showed me what surviving it looks like. Later we met Ruth at a cafe near campus. She slid a folder across the table. You've made enemies, she said. Then it was never power, I replied. Just theater. That afternoon, Graham's voicemail arrived. You've made a mistake. For Maya's sake, call me. I deleted it. At sunset, Maya waited in the car while I went inside the house. Graham stood in the living room, TV replaying his own downfall. You humiliated me. No, I said. I stopped letting you humiliate me. You destroyed your family's name. I gave it back its real one. He softened, calculating. We could have managed this quietly. Like every other truth, you managed quietly. His jaw clenched. Not anymore, I said. I already have an audience. I walked out. Maya took my hand. You've just given me the best story I'll ever tell, she whispered. Then make sure it's fair. Freedom sounded like the air that returns after the truth is spoken. 2 weeks passed. Boston thawed. Whispers followed me everywhere. That's her. Bayfield's statement was cold and bureaucratic. I didn't care. I had a voice and an audience. A friend invited me to speak on radio. I talked about silence, how it grows and how women are trained to tend it. Messages poured in. I thought I was the only one. By nightfall, the inbox sounded like rain, constant, gentle, impossible to ignore. I rented a small office above a bookstore and pinned those messages on the wall. Maya built the website, The Quiet Ledger, a place for stories too subtle for headlines, too true to stay unspoken. Ruth arrived one evening with an envelope. Inside were archived documents and a letter I'd written years ago, unsent, describing Graham's control. He had buried it under personal correspondence. Resolved. I hardly recognized my own handwriting. Ruth smiled faintly. He hides the truth like furniture under sheets. When she left, I opened a blank document and wrote. The first time I was silenced, no one told me to stop speaking. They just rewarded my quiet. By dawn, I had the first chapter of something longer than an article. Maya brought croissants. You're really doing it, she said. I'm just continuing, I replied. That evening, outside the bookstore, I saw Graham watching from across the street. I turned and walked the other way. Freedom was no longer dramatic. Just steady. Just mine. But Ruth's eyes had held a warning. There was still one secret left. Morning came gray and thin. I crossed the square to the library. Ruth's office blinds were drawn. On her chair, an envelope, my name printed neatly. Inside, a letter and a small key on a faded blue ribbon. You weren't the first woman he tried to erase, she wrote. 15 years ago, a research assistant filed a complaint. He rewrote her story before anyone saw it. She left the university. I kept her statement. Take it. Stories only matter when they're finished. I opened the cabinet. The folder was there. Her name, Claire Dawson. Her statement mirrored my own history, every line of it. On my way out, I paused by the locked auditorium. The same dark stage, the same patient spotlight waiting for someone else's truth. By afternoon, the hospital called. Ruth had collapsed in the library foyer, minutes after unlocking her office. She was alive, resting. Some truths demand their toll. That night, I began writing the final piece. My name is Ellen Pierce. I once believed silence could protect the people I loved. I was wrong. Silence protects the wrong side of history. When I finished, I placed the document beside Claire's statement and sealed them with Ruth's blue ribbon. I texted Maya, meet me at the office. I want you to read something. She arrived, read it all, then said, this isn't just about him anymore. No, I said. It's about the women who didn't get to finish their sentences. We published it under a shared byline, Maya Pierce and the archivist. Bayfield opened an inquiry. Graham resigned. He never called again. I visited Ruth. She smiled faintly. You finished it, she whispered. We did. On the hospital bulletin board, I pinned a card. Truth keeps its own calendar. Courage is the only appointment. Outside, spring was trying the air. I walked toward the river, unedited at last. Some stories don't end. They just change narrators.